Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter and I'm joined by Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1 Episode 4. It's called Memento Mori, so full spoilers for the episode as always. And La'an kind of takes center stage somewhat here. I mean, it's definitely perhaps more of an ensemble episode, but she's definitely the central character because the Gorn show up and she has a personal history with the Gorn. Although we don't see the Gorn themselves, we see the Gorn ships. We're saving actual Gorn for later.
I think we do see a Gorn eventually, though, because I remember the trailer for Strange New World seemed to have like an infant-looking Gorn. Oh,
I don't remember from the trailer. I mean, now you've said that, it makes this irrelevant what I'm about to say. But I would have said, I will bet you money that we see a Gorn by the end of the season. Like
I want the Gorn to become like the Borg of this.
Oh,
series,
sure,
yeah.
It kind of felt like that's the vibe that we're going for. But
yeah,
like to me, this felt like okay, we're going to have a bit of mystery about what they actually look like in this version of the show, because obviously most things from the '60s show, got revamped a bit. The Klingons, for example, look very different when we saw them again in movies and Next Gen and so on. So, we get this sort of trap that's laid out. The Enterprise is on its way to a planet to give them an air filter, basically, because their air's their own filters aren't working properly, or their air purifiers, whatever they're called, and they're delivering one so they can keep working. But when they get there, there's no response from the colony, and when they beam down the away team, there's like blood streaks. It's actually quite. I mean, this show is not overly dark, and it's way more Star Trek than other Star Trek shows. But there is one like bird's eye shot of just these giant streaks of blood, and I went,
"Yeah,
we'd never have seen that in the original series."
Yeah, all like culminating in one where they obviously piled up bodies or something to be dragged.
The Cenobites have been through here apparently, but it looks of it.
Yeah, sorry, we missed that scene. But
they do discover a small supply ship, which at first they think might be hostile. I actually really like the moment here where as soon as the ship didn't respond immediately, Peck's beamed the away team up, right? And he waited till they were on board just in case something went down. And it turned out nothing did go down, but it was just like a really nice little touch. I liked it. It was just, no, immediately get them up and we can do this. But it turns out to be survivors. There's about 100, or give or take, survivors from the colony, and they're not really sure what happened. But very quickly, it becomes clear that these survivors were left as bait. There is a Gorn ship waiting, cloaked against the moon of this planet, and it attacks. And because so this is actually, I really like this little detail actually, is that the small supply ship they were on was for like radioactive or something material, and because of that, the ship has got like a transport block on it so that you can't accidentally, presumably transport.
Right. You can't beam through lead or something like that. Yeah,
which is fine. But no, it makes sense that there would be safety things on a ship that transports harmful materials like that. So okay, that's so we have to actually link up, right, with the umbilical cord, if you will. And because they're linked up with another ship, they can't put the shields up. So when this attack happens, they do get hit pretty hard, and there are deaths. And that's kind of a big open of the episode. So the episode turns very much into a very classic submarine combat style episode, where the Enterprise and the Gorn ship are operating against each other, and they're using this was it a brown dwarf star to sort of hide, and it really does become a submarine, whereas the enemy type episode. And then they also play into a black hole that's nearby, which is fun. It was actually very similar looking to the effect in Interstellar, I thought.
Yeah, very much.
So and in all of this, we have various crises around the ships because of the attack. The power's out, there's medical facilities out, there's all these problems to solve, and Lan's at the center of it, trying to figure out how they can survive and get away from the Gorn. So that's the gist of the episode. Tara, what did you think of episode 4 of Strange New Worlds?
Another good one. Really enjoyed it. I obviously I'm very excited to see the Gorn is back in a Star Trek series, not just as a skeleton or something roaming around in CGI Jeffrey tubes, which is the thing in Enterprise. I enjoyed getting more lore about the Gorn lore, because I was wondering if they're going to make them kind of like they're like a predator species in Star Trek or something, like they're going to be the greatest hunters and setting traps and stuff like that. But it seems like they have a purpose, like they're trying to collect bodies basically as a resource for food, and they're just very good at it, and ruthless because they don't empathize with other creatures since they need them for eating.
Yeah, it's less predator and more just straight up like animal. Like,
yeah, it's not like a trophy thing.
It's kind of like think Borg, but instead of like Borg, like assimilating, it's just like more traditional in the sense that they're hunting for food and like they just see people as meat bags basically, and like we're going to take you in, and their hunting grounds are expanding, and they really sold them in this episode as a big threat, which is so. From what you just said there, though, is this the first time we're really dealing with Gorn plot outside of like cameos and like little Easter eggs? Is this the first time there's really a proper Gorn plot since the original show?
Well, there was a Gorn episode in Enterprise. It was only one episode, and it was kind of like it was just kind of on the ship, like roaming around, that they had to deal with this thing. But you don't really get to see it very much. It does do a thing kind of like in the Arena episode where it talks to the captain for a second, but it's not a very good episode, and it doesn't really expand too much on what the Gorn do or who they are as a race. And it's okay. But and then in Discovery we just see the Gorn skeleton in Lorca's like trophy room. That's about it.
That's interesting to me that they've basically taken this one-off villain from the original show then and said we're going to expand upon this and make this the big bad of Strange New Worlds. I think that's kind of neat, actually.
Yeah, especially since a lot of people, when they think of Star Trek and they've not seen Star Trek, and they might think of, the shots of the Gorn that get made fun of, the fight between the, William Shatner slowly doing a double fist punch against the man in a costume.
Also the rock.
It looks kind of silly,
I think.
Yeah,
there's a rock toss at one point. Yeah,
but I think that episode is perfect. Like, I love that episode, and actually the message of the episode and the threat of it is very real when you watch it, even if it does look a little silly because it's a man in a costume with very limited mobility. But I like this idea of revamping it so that the Gorn are intimidating. They should be intimidating. They're lizard men.
Yeah, they definitely feel very tactical this episode. But like I say, we have the mystery of never seeing them. In this one, it's just the ships. It's just the, they're very, to compare it to something you're going to like them compare it to, but it's very Reavers on Firefly. It's very the unseen, like, big bad that, no one's ever really seen except the people who die right after. Lan's like the only person because she survived and got away. And that's even a line in the episode, is that I think Spock says no one's ever really seen a Gorn, and Lan's like, no, tons have seen them, they just all die like before they get to tell anyone about it. Which is a really nice little like sinister touch to add on to that. So yeah, I thought it was a really fun episode. I think that this I'm knocking things down. I think it's a really fun episode, and it's very much another take on a classic original series style of episode. Obviously you've got the submarine style
like
combat. Yeah, like Balance of Terror. But you also, there was also a lot of episodes of the original series, and even Next Gen as well, actually, of like, there's something wrong in various parts of the ship, and someone, people are trapped in like maybe the cargo hold. So here it's Hemmer and Uhura are trapped, and they've got a crisis of their own that they're dealing with. That it could also destroy the entire ship if they don't deal with it. But so they're dealing with that. You got the med bay problems, and you've got all these things kind of like piling up. So a lot of that stuff felt very classic Star Trek-y to me. But the funny thing is that because this is modern and made in the modern world, this show in many ways does feel like, okay, if you try to do classic Star Trek with modern effects, techniques, and you've got the tools to do all this extra stuff, and where and I'm not going to complain about the other shows, but just where I've sort of talked about the others going too far and being too flashy and doing all these things, this feels a bit more like, this feels like it's kind of in the style as much as they can be in the style of the 60s show without being completely like, we're doing like a homage like thing where we're going to like keep it as simple as that was, because that would just be kind of unnatural today to do it that simple. Whereas now you've got the like, some really impressive like action sequences of the ship flying around. I'm thinking in particular where the Enterprise sneaks over the top of the Gorn ship when they can't see them and turns upright, like, because Peck
that was a really good shot.
He just casually says, 90 degrees, go 90 degrees above them so that we can just drop the torpedo out and it'll just land on top of them. Because they can't aim it.
Which was also a trap by the Gorn somehow.
It was, yeah. Well, that's actually one of the interesting... This is actually the thing that made me think of the Borg more than anything, is this idea that they will sacrifice one of their own. It's just it's like, oh, that's an acceptable thing just to like lure them out. So they let one of their ships be destroyed, and maybe they evacuated it as best they could first. Who knows? But it's still pretty. At least one person was on there flying it, at least. So
it seems to be the reason people have not seen the Gorn is also because they are so relentless that they will not stop until everyone who has seen them has died.
Yeah. And maybe the only ones that have been destroyed have been in ships where they get obliterated, so you don't get to see them, because we see one of their ships implode. Because that's the other thing, is that they're hiding in this brown dwarf, and the further they go in towards the core of this dwarf, the more pressure there is, which was actually the thing. It was already very
another submarine thing, right?
it was already very submarine-y anyway, but when the ship started creaking because the pressure was starting to get to it, I was like, oh, this actually sounds like a submarine movie now.
Yeah. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's maybe they react in the right way though, because like multiple characters, like, I've never heard a ship make that sound because it's space.
There's no pressure in space. Yeah.
And they're not technically in space anymore. They're in the the gas of a dwarf. So
there's a great joke in Futurama where the ship goes into the water because they're trying to find the lost city of Atlanta, and the pressure is getting really high. And I don't remember who asked Fry, or someone says, well, how much pressure can the ship can take? And Leela's like, well, it's a spaceship, so somewhere between 0 and 1. It was funny. I guess you had to be there.
It's all right. I was all right. But yeah, so we have a lot of stuff to do. I mean, the only thing that I would say is maybe a little... I don't dislike it necessarily, but I do think it's just a little convenient, or maybe contrived, maybe a better word, is that, Spock at one point, when they go off on a shuttle, the Galileo from the original series, that shuttle's still around. It's very nice.
I think my replica, my shuttle replica is also a Galileo, yeah.
You nerd.
It's also an alarm clock, but it's too loud to use.
But they're in the shuttle, and they're out there to peek above the clouds and see where the Gorn are. The idea being that they may not detect the little shuttle because it's much smaller. And Spock decides to mind meld with La'an because maybe there'll be something from her memories that she's repressed that would help give them some info on the Borg. Or the Borg, sorry, that was a Freudian slip. On the Gorn. And I think, the idea that, in her head, she sees this, like, effectively Gorn alphabet or Gorn like light signal like chart, and like from that they're able to just like speak from it. Like she's able to flash some lights and sort of convince them to destroy one of their own ships, which is a fun little bit. But I'm like, I mean,
they have lizard brains.
True, that's true. Yeah, maybe they're not too bright. They're relentless but not bright. But it's like, so we're saying that. I mean, maybe this is something that's come up in Star Trek before, is the idea that if your main melody, like, it is like a photographic memory where everything in there is like completely there, but it's just a little like,
yeah, it was in the last season of Discovery, right, when they were trying to see if there's that blue residue after the explosion of the planet. So the Vulcan lady from Navarre mind melts with Book, and it is just like a reenactment.
Yeah, well, but I buy that more than like remembering an entire like page of data. Like that's the sort of thing where there's a lot of information there for you to actually remember.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And we get a little Michael Burnham in this.
Oh, they talk about her, yeah, because
yeah. Well, you can hear her in the mind melt. She has a line from season 2 of Discovery.
True. Yeah, because basically because they're melded, obviously she starts to hear some of Spock's like inner things, and it's like,
yeah, presumably he's thinking about it in the moment because La'an is losing her brother. He's doing this great sacrifice for her.
Yeah, that's how she got away originally. Yeah, and obviously that makes him think of his sister, and she brings that up, and he's like, "Oh, this is getting far too personal. We're ending this main mail right now."
It's top secret.
Yeah, apparently Michael's existence is even top secret. There's no record of her, and
classified.
Which, I mean, this is not really a critique on this show. It's more just a critique in general of, oh yeah, we have to like make it link up again. So, oh, no one's allowed to talk about Discovery or anyone who worked on Discovery. Like they're all.
They mentioned it in the first season or the first episode. I assumed that was going to be the last of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think little snippets like this make sense just from a personal standpoint, but it's
it would have been nice if there was, and you have a brother, Cyborg.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Star Trek 5. Spock's got a lot of random siblings that pop up out of nowhere, apparently.
Yeah, he's not very proud. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some fun stuff here, though. The big plan ultimately at the end is to like slingshot around the black hole, and although. And maybe it's just because it's not been that long since I watched Interstellar, but I was thinking, isn't time going to work differently when they're close to the black hole?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Well, also, I mean, that's what they did they used the sun, which also is just a well of gravity and of whatever, in order to slingshot around the sun into Picard to go back in time.
Yeah, but black hole, like, I was thinking, like, surely once you slingshot around that, you're going to come back and realize that, like, 3 decades have passed since you left Starfleet.
Yeah, no wonder the Gorn ship is gone.
But it, nearly works, and they get off on their way. And because the thing at the start of the episode is that it's like Remembrance Day in Starfleet, so they're all wearing this like extra little pin. Yeah,
it's like their poppy, right?
Yeah.
Except today or this weekend is Memorial Weekend, so it is the weekend that we celebrate the people who gave their lives in service.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seems to be timed for that.
Oh yeah, it's well, because it's a streaming show, I didn't really even think about them timing it for it. Maybe that's just a coincidence, to be honest. You don't have like a poppy equivalent though, do you, for Memorial Day?
No. It's a British thing, but we definitely had it in Canada.
Oh,
so when I lived in Canada, we would wear the poppy on. We had Remembrance Day, and we would wear the poppy pin.
Yeah. It's November here. Remembrance Day.
It's probably the same in Canada. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. But yeah, we have Memorial Day here for people who gave their lives in service, and then Veterans Day is just for the ones that are still alive.
Yeah,
might be November time.
Yeah, I want to say Remembrance Day specifically for World War II. So people can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it's specifically just for World War II.
Yeah. But I was thinking of the poppy because they all wear a pin of a ship that they served on that maybe lost. They lost some crewmen on.
Yeah,
which I thought was a neat little addition to. It's obviously something we've never seen in Star Trek before. But so many people, lose their lives all the time, and the captain doesn't seem all that bothered by it. So it's nice that we have a day at least that we can think about the people who gave their lives. To be fair,
Pike did seem, choked. As soon as he learned there was like 7 crew members dead from the attack early on, he did seem pretty choked up about it. And Lan's arc over the episode is that she doesn't want to put it on at first because she doesn't want to dwell in the past, but then at the end she puts it on after like the main meld and seeing her brother again, and these memories come flooding back. But she is very adamant when they're like in the meeting room and they're talking about the Gorn. Like, she is not pulling her punches. She's making it very clear how dangerous she thinks they are. And that they're not to be trifled with, and we have to take this as the utmost threat. So I was into that little arc. It's this idea that she has kind of this tough head who will just say what she's thinking. She doesn't filter. She's very. And there's actually a few characters that you can kind of say that about in the show. Oh, they're all a bit different though. They're not the same way, but because you can kind of say that about Hemmer a little bit. He's very straight to the point and just.
You kind of say that about Chapel also.
And Chapel, yeah, as well. Chapel's got more of a sort of like quirky, upbeat. Like, I just say what my mind's thinking, rather than it being like purely cynical all the time.
Yeah. You're right. They all have a very different version of being candor.
Yes, but it all comes from a different place. But I was into that. Do you know what? It's one thought is that so when the away team go down at the start to the colony, and it's on fire and there's blood everywhere, they've put on like sort of like Black Ops gear to go down, and I don't have a problem with that. It makes sense that they would go down when they don't know what the situation is, and like sort of stealth and like be very tactical about it. My only comment here, I don't even call it a critique, I'll just say it's a comment, is that it's very inconsistent, because I feel like, going from this time period that it's meant to be in, which is like pre the original series, I don't remember the original series them ever having a different outfit when they went down.
They just send the captain down.
Yes.
That's what the red shirts were for.
Like Kirk would be like, "Oh, it's a dangerous situation. We don't know what's going down there. I'm going down there myself personally. Come on, Mr. Spock."
All senior officers with me.
Yes.
And Bill, you're coming too.
Yes. Red shirt number 7, you have the deck. But yeah, that just stuck out to me a little bit. I noticed at the start. So you got Hammer with Uhura. They bond a little bit, and it's a nice little play on before, because as the previously on reminded you, like, she offered help. He was kind of offended that she offered help, but here he actually his hand gets like broken, so he can't use one hand. And he has to talk her through because she's not an engineer, so she's trained and very skilled in a lot of things, she's not actually trained to like work this thing, so he's having to explain, you need to keep the coolant up so it doesn't like overload and go boom. And
I really like the moment where she needs to remove something that's not working and replace it with one that will work. And she's like, well, they all look the same, how do I know? He's like, well, you have to feel. And it's like a nice reminder of like, oh yeah, he can see, but in like a different spectrum than us. So it would be easy for him to see that one has no heat coming off of it. So I immediately know that that's the one that's broken and I can change it out. Whereas Uhura has to like, feel around and burns herself at first to know. So that it gives us a nice example of like just a simple thing where Hammer, would have the advantage here, despite his not being able to see in the visual spectrum that we do.
And there was a good little moment as well, like after the initial explosions and stuff, and they're getting up, she's just like got his arm out from under the rubble, and they're about to leave, and she stops, and he's just like, "The door's blocked, isn't it?" And she's like, "Yes." So it's just that little thing of like, he can't actually see that there's obstacles there, because they're just, there's no heat coming from them. They're just bits of whatever.
He's probably sensing her sigh of, are you kidding me right now?
Well, that's the other thing, is that they actually could die when they're slingshotting around the black hole, because they have to stay in this part of the ship, so they have to put on evo suits, and they have to like tether themselves and hope that it holds when they're doing this crazy slingshot maneuver. So we get this thing where they're holding on to each other. It's kind of a nice moment, because they're sort of like having to save each other and hold on. And there's a moment afterwards they play for drama where Pike's like asking for a response and they're not saying anything. And Uhura apparently...
oh no, did Uhura die?
I mean, yeah, obviously it's ridiculous from an audience point of view, because we know Uhura's not going to die, but it plays well enough in the moment, although part of me did think, oh, that sneaky Uhura, I'm going to give him a little scare. I'm going to not respond for 30 seconds, because Pike's... I'm
going to make him like really appreciate me right now,
Because Pike's like, his head's down, and actually I love that when her voice does come in to say they're okay, I love that it's when he's in the middle of giving his next order and not when he's still silent. It's one of those little choices that's made that just makes it feel a bit more like real, because so many times you'll get moments like this in a TV show where they're like, oh, come in, let us know you're okay, and there'll be a long pause, like, please come in, please respond, and then eventually they'll say something and they'll still be waiting. I actually love that he'd already like assumed, oh no, I think they're dead, send in a team.
Yeah.
So he was giving that order out, and then she interrupted him. I actually, it's just a little thing, but I really liked it.
Sure. I mean, I've seen it attempted in other things where they're like, we're going to start our next line, but we're only going to get halfway through it and then get interrupted. But the timing's a little bit off. So they're like saying, they're like, computer, send in the response team. Oh, there's Uhura, Captain. Like, okay, good. Finally.
Oh, yeah, it didn't feel like that. Like, it felt natural, I think, this one.
Yeah.
So you had that, you had the med-based stuff. Una is injured, she's going to be okay, but she like gives up the plasma. There's only a bit of plasma left, and she gives it to another patient.
Yeah, I assume they just can't replicate anything, and they don't have limited access to stuff because everything's down. There's no power available to them. And
Benga says that when they're doing their meeting, he's on the comms and he's like, yeah, there's like nothing's working down here, so everything's like just old school, like stitches, and like this is all we've got. So they're kind of operating old school for a while, and we know that Una can, her system's a bit better than the regular humans, so I assume that when she's making her choices here that they'll give it to someone else. It is a bit heroic, but it's also like, oh no, I can take it, like, just, you know.
Well, I mean, they still say that she's probably not going to make it because she's going to lose a lot of blood, which is why we see that Vega is operating while also transfusing his own blood into her.
I like that moment because she wakes up and she looks down, she sees the tube, and she looks over and it's like connected to his wrist. It's
yeah. They found a way.
I love the idea that he's checked, like, is anyone our blood type? Oh, I am. Oh, well, in that case, plop. But
he'll have limited range to work, but, you know, sacrifices must be made.
I mean, there's a sort of running theme throughout all the plots here, though, that's quite clear. Like, when they're slingshotting around the black hole, you have Uhura and Hemmer holding on to each other. Here you have Mbenga giving blood to make sure that she's okay, even though there's no plasma to give her. And then you have Spock with La'an mind melding and like helping her through that. Like, there's a lot of pairings of like just examples of officers being there for each other, and the idea that we get through these things together. We don't get through this on our own, kind of thing. Which
teamwork makes the dream work.
Which is kind of like the opposite of what the Gorn, you know, represent, because they have no empathy. They have
even La'an, like it's you know, seems to be something that she has to go through anyway, because she has that I'm the expert on this. I'm no nonsense. Like I'm the only one who made it out, who survived for this reason. So it's still like, I don't know. I can kind of see her strategy as being like a bit isolating also.
Well, I think that's the arc, though, is that she starts off a loner, but by the end she comes to like accept help, and because everyone else is helping each other, and that's how they're getting through it. And even if she sees herself as a lone survivor, she did get help. Her brother sacrificed himself to save her, so she didn't do it alone, really. Like, someone else saved her, you know. So it's this kind of,
but she is really pessimistic also in like the beginning of it. When she's talking about how there's no hope, there's nothing we can do. Like either we do things perfectly or we're all dead. And I don't know who it was, but someone tells her, maybe it was Pike, like maybe tone it down and bring in a little optimism. So
there's a central theme throughout all of it. The actual submarine combat stuff is kind of fun, because there's the tension of like, can they see us, can they not, whilst we're in this brown dwarf, and they're like, you know, they have to sort of like test it, and they're looking at the blip on the screen, and it's like, oh no, it's changing course, like it doesn't know where we are. And then later on, when the other ones show up, it's like, wait, why is that blip so much bigger? Because Ortega's, you know, I wouldn't say has a lot of character like story in this episode. She has a lot of little moments in this one where like she interjects a lot as far as the orders she's getting, like how crazy the things that Pike's ask her to do are, and
she's awesome. Like, I really enjoy her character. She's there to, I don't want to say be comic relief. She's just like cool, and she comes off as cool, and she's got an interesting character. Unlike, you know, Detmer is cool in Discovery, but we don't really know too much about her still. But like Ortega is like, I understand who this character is, and she is different from everybody else, and she's just a cool pilot character, you know. She's Top Gun.
There's a fun moment where Spock says something about the computer doing part of the navigating, and Ortega turns around immediately and goes, but I'm doing most of the work still, just it's mostly me. Like, I don't know, just that little moment was a good little character beat.
I mean, like, I like these characters a lot, and I'm really excited for everybody to get their episode, you know, where I get to know more about them, because I already like them all.
Yeah, and I've been saying this every episode, but each one after the pilot has focused on a different character by and large, and hell, even the fact that La'an was kind of the secondary character last episode and then became the main character this episode, it's kind of a natural follow through where you sort of get a little bit of it and then you get more of her the next time. So
we could probably put them all into tiers as to like important. There's definitely layers. Like, we've had a lot of Uhura in most of the episodes. Also, she had her own episode in the second one, but you know, she's not been around. So yeah, I think we're gonna have. It still feels like a good ensemble piece, and everyone's gonna get a moment to shine.
Yeah.
Without backseating too many people to do it, you know.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's felt like they've been short. I feel like there's some characters who feel a bit lower down the pecking order right now, but I could totally see them turning that around immediately with one episode focused on them.
Yeah, like the transporter guy. I mean, even he had a moment in this where a guy saves him.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about it, because I do think I don't know if he's getting an episode. He feels a bit lower than that. I was thinking more Hemmer and like Ortega's.
I don't remember what his rank, if he's ensign or lieutenant, but I know his name's Kyle.
Well, I wasn't talking about his in-universe rank. I'm talking about like his rank as a character on the show.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know what to call him.
Oh, sure.
Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but like, I know he seems like he's probably at the bottom at the moment, but he might get an episode. You never know. He is a legacy character brought over from the original series.
He feels the least likely to me right now because I'm not sure Ortega's will get one. I kind of hope she does at some point. I would say.
I bet she will. Yeah.
I would say Hemmer's a no-brainer for an episode. Yeah.
But even Hemmer's kind of like around where Ortega's is from what we've seen so far. He's just sort of been around and had some things to say.
Yeah, I would say Hemmer, Ortega's, Nurse Chapel, and the Doctor are all kind of around the same tier right now. But like, I think any four of those could get an episode at any point and sort of expand upon who they are, and it would fit in the context of the show.
You think we're going to get a Transporter Chief episode?
I don't. If I was to guess right now, I would say no. But I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, I mean,
sure, yeah.
Why not? Like, if they want to. But yeah, he gets saved by a crewman who gets killed because he's trying to help this injured crewman out the door before it shuts because they're closing off parts of the ship because the parts of the ship are about to be spaced, and the guy realizes they're not going to make it, so he just pushes Transporter dude through the door. And then he has to watch the door shut, and then just as it's about to just finish closing, you just see a little bit of the gap. You can just see the first part of him like going whoosh to the side because obviously he's got it in the vacuum space.
We did good timing with that.
So
yeah, that was a good moment.
Yeah,
I mean, tragic, but you know.
You know what I meant. You know what I meant.
We love death in space.
Well, I love death in most places, to be honest. I'm a pretty morbid guy.
No, we just like the macabre. That's all.
So, yeah, I mean, the episode's pretty good. Maybe the best one yet?
Maybe. I like the last one a lot.
I like the last one too. I think this one, because it was played into that submarines like combat stuff, and it was treating the Gorn as this like very serious threat that is clearly going to be coming back. Like, I don't think it's going to be coming back a lot. I think it may just be one more episode, like towards the end of the season, maybe the finale, where we finally get to see a Gorn, and that'll be the big like thing. But
I'm sure they won't do this. But like, I'm thinking of other like Star Trek villains that they can bring back as like a serious threat that weren't so serious in the first one. Like, make the space hippies really serious and gritty. Or, I was thinking, you know, they do this in Lower Decks because this is like the Lower Decks villain throughout the series are the Packlets, which are a one episode villain from the Next Generation of this really dumb species that has all this technology because they just steal it and they don't know how to use it, and when things break they just ask people to come fix it for them who are nice and then just take their technology and leave. And so it would be really funny if they can like make the Packlets serious and threatening.
I mean, this wouldn't be a new thing. This would be taking something from Discovery, but I could totally see Harry Mudd showing up at some point.
Oh yeah, maybe it's still the right time. He's still around. Yeah,
exactly. It would make sense for him to be around. But
I really like the Harry Mudd storylines in Discovery too. Like, Madness to make the Sanest Man go mad was like the best episode of season 1.
No, I mean, I don't think he'd be a serious, like, you know, season-long threat like the Gorn are, or, you know, like what we're suggesting for some of these others. But I can see him popping up for an episode.
Yeah. They probably won't do triples because that would be too much.
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them because they know it will get a reaction, but yeah, they shouldn't do triples, I guess.
Well, they did the short treks for triples, and that was pretty fun. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, but that wasn't that set further ahead?
No, Pike was in it.
Oh, Pike was in the triples one?
Yeah.
Okay, alright, okay, I don't remember that. It's been a while. But fair enough. Also, there was some corrections on the last review, just before we wrap up here.
Sure.
It was about the cage in the timeline. The cage has already happened. Because you were talking about crew like who weren't like there but were in the cage. The cage happened a good bit before the original series. This is between the cage and the original series. Someone said that in a comment.
Yeah.
I didn't corroborate it.
That makes sense because in Discovery they go back to there and he already knew who the woman was and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So. You reminded me of it there because you brought up whatever the other thing was. But yeah, Cool. It's a good episode though. I really like this one.
Yeah.
It's not had a stinker yet, which I am like 4 episodes in. For a new Trek show, 4 episodes in to not have a stinker is.
Well, Lower Decks is great.
I'm talking the live action. I'm never talking about the animated series, right? I'm never talking about this.
I know you haven't watched them. They're so good.
I'm comparing simply to the ones that I have seen. So
Prodigy's pretty good too.
Hell, even the original Next Gen, like episode 3 was like the really racist episode. so it's even the good Trek shows have stinkers early on.
The sexy naked now episode, and then they had the racist planet.
Yeah, it was the jungle gym where Tasha has to fight for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we already knew about rape gangs by then.
Yes, that was a very early revelation. But there you go. That is episode 4 of Strange New Worlds. Hopefully you're enjoying the show as well. We will see you next week for the next one. But let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, hit the thanks button if you wish. You can also support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher, well, he's not been born yet because it's like 70 years or 80 years maybe even at this point.
He showed up in Picard in this timeline, so he's around.
I suppose, yeah, okay, once you add in the time travel, it's a bit weird, and it could be
he is God. He's everywhere.